This conference will now be recorded.
There you go. Welcome to the City of Warrenville Public Works and Infrastructure Committee of the Whole regular meeting. It is Monday, October 11th, 2021. Please note that this meeting is being recorded in accordance with Governor Pritzker's disaster proclamation, Section 7 parens E of the Illinois Open Meetings Act, and a determination by Chairman Clairberry. This meeting will be held virtually. May we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Brummel,
Present.
Alderman Anderson, Alderman Anderson,
Alderman Anderson, we're not hearing you.
I'm here.
Okay.
Alderman Ashour,
Here.
Alderman Berry,
Here.
Alderman Davalos,
Hopefully she will be with us shortly.
okay, I'll call her again later. Alderman Goodman,
Here.
Alderman Krishel,
Here.
Alderman Widener, Alderman Widener, you're on mute.
Here.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson,
Here.
okay. Alderman Davalos, you have her yet?
No, I don't see her.
Okay. City Administrator Coakley,
I'm here.
Public Works Director Kukler,
I'm here.
Community and Economic Development Director Ron Menzer,
Here.
Administrative Services Coordinator Alma Morgan,
Here.
Deputy Clerk Dawn Gravetti, I'm here. Public Works Management Analyst Kristen Youngmeyer.
Here.
Is there any other staff I didn't call? Looks like we got everybody, and no Alderman Davalos yet. Okay, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Now, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance here, but if you will say it silently to yourselves.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now on to citizens' comments. We'll begin with any present at City Hall wishing to make a comment. And from what I understand, we have no one here who will make a comment this evening. We will now hear any verbal comments from the public participating by phone. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please announce yourself with your name and address. Please speak slowly and clearly so we can capture your information. Once we have everyone wishing to speak, I will call on you one by one to proceed with your comments. Is there anyone on the phone who wishes to make a comment? Hearing no one, we will go on. I do see Alderman Davalos has joined us. Alderman Davalos, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. So sorry.
Quite all right. Thank you. Now for email comments will be read aloud following the verbal comments. And at the moment, I think we have no email comments. So once we conclude citizens' comments, there will not be another opportunity for the public to comment. Okay, now on to officials and staff comments. Mayor Brummel.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have nothing to add at this point. We've got a pretty full agenda and I'm eager to join.
Okay, thank you. Clerk Gravetti.
Thank you.
No comments? Okay, treasurer is not here. And now on to the alderman. Alderman Anderson,
No comments tonight.
thank you. Alderman Ashour,
No comments, thank you.
okay. I do have one comment. This coming Sunday, the 17th, is the cemetery walk, which is put on by the Warrenville Historical Society. I think it starts, as you can tell, I'm a wealth of information here. I think it starts around 7 o'clock, as soon as it starts to get dark. So if you would please like to join us that evening at the Warrenville Cemetery, it's a fun time. And we'd like to see a lot of people come out. Make sure you bring your flashlight. All right, Alderman Davalos, anything
I
this
have nothing
evening?
tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Goodman.
Yes, I didn't know if staff was going to mention the virtual meeting October 19th for the Old Town Civic Center redevelopment site number 2 information session. People who have comments or questions can log in online, and there's information about it on the city website.
Thank you. Alderman Krischel.
No comments, thank you.
Alderman Widener.
Yes, thank you. Many people are recognizing today as Indigenous Peoples Day, and we should remember that this area was home to numerous Native American communities over the past century, and we continue to seek to build beneficial relationships with Native American communities, leaders, and knowledge holders. And through these relationships, we recognize Indigenous rights and fostering cultural equity. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
No comments, thank you.
Okay, thank you. City Administrator Copley.
Excuse me, I have no comments tonight, thank you.
Okay. Any other staff that would like to make comment at this time? Okay, seeing no one. We will go on to the business of the meeting. The first item is consideration of a resolution approving a long-term facility use agreement with Tunes of Glory Pipe and Drums Incorporated. This is Clerk Gravetti will make that presentation.
Yes, thank you. In 1993, the city and Tunes of Glory Pipe and Drum Band entered into an annual agreement for the use of certain areas of City Hall for band rehearsals in exchange for free performances in the Independence Day Parade and 2 additional performances at times and places mutually agreed upon by each year. Annual extensions and renewals of the agreement continued through the year 2000, and since then and prior to COVID-19, Tunes of Glory had regularly rehearsed at City Hall on Wednesdays without an agreement. At this time, Tunes of Glory wants to enter into an extended agreement for the use of City Hall in exchange for 2 annual performances, the Independence Day Parade and Holidays, at no additional cost, through the year 2025. The facility use agreement drafted by the city attorney is included with the agenda backup material, and if the committee has any questions or changes to it, I'd be happy to hear them.
Thank you. I will go through the list of aldermen to see if there are any comments or questions. Alderman Anderson.
No questions, I support.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
I think it's a great deal for us.
Thank you. I also agree. I think it's great. I love it when they're in the parade and they're so great. Alderman Davalos.
No, I have no problems with this. This is a good idea.
Alderman Goodman.
Just one very minor question, which is why the restrooms aren't listed as the permitted location. I just think that should be added. It includes the second floor lobby, which is also, open to the public and not exclusively used by them. But I just think to be a bit more comprehensive, we should make sure it says they can use the bathrooms. Very minor thing.
Thank you. Sure. City Administrator Coakley.
Thank you. I think you forgot my name.
Yeah, for a minute I was like,
I was only gone a couple of days. They certainly would be able to use the restroom because it's a public building, but the thinking, and sorry, Dawn, if I mean to step on your comments here, is that it's the areas that they have to themselves for practicing that are reserved. The council chamber, the gallery, and the lobby. The restrooms would be open for any group that's there. So it could be a side note, but the idea is the area is exclusive for them on that evening where they would be practicing, rehearsing, what have you.
Right, but I mean, the lobby isn't exclusive. If I wanted to come in and pick up my packet or something, I could walk through.
Certainly. You certainly
So,
could.
the lobby's listed, just put in the bathrooms. It seems like a very minor thing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Kreschel?
I have no questions. I'm good with it.
Alderman Widener?
Thank you. I just wanted to check with staff to be certain that there's proper insurance coverage and hold harmless agreements in place for their use of the city facilities.
I can reply to that. As part of the guidelines for the facility use agreement, they have already submitted that information through the end of this year. And as part of the guidelines attached to the agreement, they would also be required to go through 2025.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and Alderman Wilson?
Just a comment, I think this is good. Let them use the facilities. They should, because they participate in a lot of activities. So I'm all for it. Thank you.
Okay, and Mayor Brummel?
Thank you. I'm in support of this as presented also.
Okay, thank you. We need a motion and a second.
Alderman Davalos, I'd like to recommend the City Council pass a resolution approving a facility use agreement with Tunes of Glory Pipe and Drums Incorporated for use of certain areas of City Hall for rehearsals through 2025.
Second, Alderman Ashour.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Davalos and a second by Alderman Ashour. Clerk Gravetti, could you read the roll?
Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Alderman Anderson.
Aye.
Alderman Widener.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Krischel.
Aye.
Alderman Berry.
Aye.
Alderman Ashour.
Aye.
Alderman Davalos.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2, consideration of personal protective equipment, PPE, safety policy. This will be presented by Administrative Services Coordinator Alma Morgan.
Thank you. Good evening. The City Safety Committee continues to review and revise the policies available through the city's workers' compensation carrier, Illinois Public Risk Fund, in order to meet Warrenville's needs. And eventually all these policies will be combined to form a revised safety manual to replace the current manual that was last updated in 2013. To date, the City Council has approved 15 safety policies, and included with this evening's agenda backup material is the draft personal protective equipment policy, which of course is a vital part of an effective safety system. And at that, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Anderson, questions, comments?
No question. No.
Okay, Alderman Ashour?
No questions, thank you.
I have no questions either. Alderman Davalos?
I have no questions, thanks.
Alderman Goodman?
One small question. I see the list of hazard categories on page 2 that you only need PPE for. The list is impact, heat, penetration, harmful dust, compression, light, and chemical. And as we're all very sadly aware, people have to use PPE for biological hazards as well quite a lot during the pandemic. So I just wondered if biological should be added to that list.
Okay, thank you.
Other than that, it looks like a very well thought out policy. Thank you for your work.
Alderman Kreshel.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Widener.
No questions and no comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
No questions nor comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We would need a motion and a second, please.
Alderman Davalos, I would like to recommend the City Council adopt the Safety Committee Personal Protective Equipment PPE policy effective immediately.
Second. Anderson.
Okay. We have a motion by Alderman Davalos and a second by Alderman Anderson. Clerk Ravetti, could you please read the roll call?
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Krishel,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashaw.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, number 3, consideration of developer request to modify the Equestria subdivision agreement. Director Menzer will do the presenting.
Good evening, and thank you, Chairman and City Council. In 2008, the city approved the preliminary PUD plans for the Equestria subdivision, a subdivision of 10 new single-family home sites that had been proposed along the west side of Landon Avenue on 13 acres of vacant property located approximately halfway between Albright Court on the north and Point Oak Drive on the south. Unfortunately for the property owner and developer perspective, the late 2000 housing crisis and resulting residential real estate market crash really put the kibosh on that project, you might say, and the developer never moved forward and obtained the final PUD approvals from the city to construct that project. In 2009, the city and the developer, this was still at a point in time when the developer was anticipating moving forward with the project, but in 2009, the city and the developer entered into a subdivision agreement. Under the provisions of the subdivision agreement, the city made a commitment to the developer that the city would convey whatever rights it had in a 50-foot wide strip of land located adjacent to the west edge of the Equestria subdivision property to the property owner in exchange for the property owner's commitment to develop the property in a manner similar to the preliminary PUD plans that had been approved by the community a few months prior to that. And specifically, the developer and property owner at the time, one and the same, committed to dedicating some very important public utility storm or sanitary sewer and water main easements across the entire south edge of the property to the city of Warrenville, and also committed to constructing a approximately 1/4 mile long permeable pavement public cul-de-sac cul-de-sac street to serve the subdivision that was being proposed. Again, that agreement was all created and executed in the context of the developer was committed to moving forward with the subdivision of the property and the development of 10 new homes on it. Unfortunately, again, that never came to any fruition for the developer or the property owner or the city. At this point in time, the property has been marketed for sale. The city staff has been notified by the owner of the property that they have a interested party that is very interested in purchasing the property and using the property to accommodate the construction of one new single-family home and a large horse barn on the property. The barn and home would be served by a single new private drive that would be constructed off of the west side of Landon Avenue to the new house and barn. Unfortunately for the developer or for the property owner and the prospective purchaser of the property, the development agreement that was executed by the property owner and the city back in 2009 still is legally in effect, and the structure and provisions in that agreement, without some adjustment from the city, really prevent the property from being approved with just one single family home that would be served by a private drive. The developer has retained the services of a local land use attorney who is representing I should say the developer, it's the property owner. They're not developing the property. And that attorney has submitted a letter dated October 6th that was included in the agenda packet backup materials that outlines the property owner's request for the city to approve several items related to this property, including a couple of amendments to the subdivision agreement from 2009. Within a copy of that letter is included in the agenda packet backup materials. The first item that's addressed in the letter is really an item that Public Works Superintendent Phil Kukler is going to address in the next agenda item on tonight's agenda. So I'm going to focus on the two amendments that are being requested by the property owner to the subdivision improvement agreement. Specifically, the property owner is requesting that rather than having only one development alternative approved for the project or for the property, that being the 10-lot new single-family home subdivision, that an alternate plan also be accommodated under an amended version of the agreement that would allow for the property to be used for one single-family home and a horse barn and a private driveway. So that's amendment number one. And then the second amendment would eliminate the need for the construction of the long public permeable pavement cul-de-sac, public cul-de-sac on the property if the property is only improved with a single family home. From a staff perspective, we've met with the developer, we've talked it over and discussed the request from the property owner in detail. We feel that given the context of the real estate market today and what's being proposed, input from the neighborhood in the past about the development of this property, we feel it's in the city's best interest to move forward and approve an amended agreement that incorporates the amendments that are requested by the property owner and outlined in that October 6th letter from their attorney. We are therefore recommending that the committee of the whole authorize or direct staff to work with the city attorney on preparing the amended subdivision agreement under the condition that the developer would bear any costs, all costs, I should say, there will be costs, all costs the city incurs in developing the revised agreement.
Great, thank you. We'll go through the list. Alderman Anderson? Comments? Okay.
Yeah, Director Metzer, I'm just trying to understand. I understand that one option that the owner is looking for is that ability to do the single house with horse barn. Did I hear you correctly that we're looking to amend it so it would also still have the ability to be the segmented property that's currently drafted for?
Yeah, so this is on the screen is a copy of the preliminary planned unit development plan that was previously approved by the city back in 2008. And that's what the agreement envisions would happen on the property. So what we're basically saying is amend the agreement, or we're recommending that the agreement be amended to allow for an alternative to be put in place, and that be just the development of the property with a single family home and a horse barn. So this plan would eventually, if somebody decided at some future point to come back and try to subdivide the property, that the agreement in this plan would still be in effect in a sense. They'd still have to go through the whole preliminary planned unit development public hearing process, but this would still be an option.
Okay. I like the idea. For some reason, I wasn't able to find the letter in my packet. But I like the idea. I'm going to be very interested in Alderman Ashour's perspectives on this, as I know he's intimate with this particular area. No further questions.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
I guess my question is, since it isn't going to develop as a PUD or a normal residential development, should the, because the condition of it was we would give them the right of way that we had control of, is that something that should be returned to the city's ownership? Unless it did, change into it just would seem to help our control if things change.
It's not an unreasonable request. One of the more important elements of the development agreement that the developer, or I should say the property owner, did satisfy is that it was really important for the city to obtain the utility easements that allowed us to ultimately extend the sewer and water improvements through the property from Landon Avenue to the west. Ultimately, those were extended underneath the Prairie Path to serve all the new development that is now happening in TIF 4. And this made that all, to a certain extent, possible. So there was some compensation that was given to in a sense, to the city by the dedication of those easements.
Anything else, Alderman Ashour?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part that Ron said. I just lost the audio on that.
How much of what I said? Just the last part?
Well, you were talking about the consideration for dedication of an easement.
Okay, so in a sense, the dedication of those easements at no cost to the city, to a certain extent, is some compensation for some compensation that we did receive.
Oh, I understand that, and when we talked about it, I mean, we went ahead and did this on a whole bunch of good faith. Put it through, made it available for the developer. It would have included the development of road, which would have been most of the easement. The easement that would have been important is the area from the end of the cul-de-sac, basically to the right of way that the city owns or used to own. I just think it would be just because of the way the whole thing kind of fell apart, and we grabbed the bull by the horns with the expense of the infrastructure improvements, which did make the property more valuable. There's no question about it. I think that's for us to retain that ownership until the property develops in another way.
Okay, so what the way the original agreement was structured, the property, that strip of land has already been conveyed to the developer or to the property owner. So we would need to, with any amendment going forward, we need to include provisions that, in order to make that amendment effective, the property owner need to convey that land back to the city.
Well, it would protect us from the fact of a piecemeal development without a road, end up with a bunch of flag lots, which is not the intention.
Sure.
So that's my viewpoint. It's up to the rest of the council.
From a staff perspective, we don't object to that. That's, I think, a reasonable expectation here. I just wanted to clarify that that would need to be something that we would need to incorporate into the amended agreement.
Thank you.
Director Menzer, do you want to have the owner or the attorney, they're present? Would you like to have them make any comments?
I think it would be good once maybe after the city council
Okay.
goes through, or if they have any specific questions for the developer property.
Okay. I have no comments. Alderman Davalos?
Yeah, without the letter in there, I was a little confused about exactly what they were asking for. But it seems like Director Menzer, you kind of went over that, I think. But here's what I'm left with. You did mention that we would have done this water and sewer part anyway to get to Everton, to get across and get to Everton, right? I mean, this would have happened anyway, right? That water and sewer?
Well, we entered into this agreement after or we were trying to figure out how we were going to serve the whole Southwest District with utilities. Everton was not a project that was envisioned when we entered into the agreement. We just knew that that southwest quadrant of the community lacked utilities, and that was one of the reasons that was preventing any new desirable development from happening out in that area of our community. So we were very focused on finding a way to extend utilities out to that area. And this was an opportunity that presented itself because of the potential development of the property.
Okay, so if this goes through and the new owner, single family owner, decides to sell, let me just say, you said this one we're voting on tonight will be in place, or will we go back to the old PUD in some fashion? I mean, what happens now? Alderman Asher kind of mentioned that.
If somebody bought the property and used it for a single family home, and at some point in the future, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, somebody else decided that they wanted to come back and redevelop the property and subdivide the property, the way staff is recommending it, the subdivision agreement would still be in effect, and most all of the requirements and obligations that are articulated in that subdivision agreement would still apply, unless at that point in time the city decided not to require those things and would amend the agreement to relieve the future developer from any requirements contained in the agreement. But any development that would involve the subdivision of the property would still have to go through at that time, a new review and Plan Commission City Council approval process.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, there's a lot of noise going on. It makes it hard to hear. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm just bringing it up. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to mention, if you are not speaking, you must mute yourself because we're getting a lot of background noise. It's very difficult to hear. Thank you. Alderman Goodman.
Yes, I mean, the only thing I would say is I think maybe some of the confusion comes from the backup not having been printed and put in our packet. I appreciate Manager Analyst Youngmeyer this afternoon with the link. Yeah, it was available on the website. But if other members of the council who didn't get a chance to look at the letter or the 2009 approvals, which I imagine have not been top of mind for many of us, maybe we should continue this to a later time just to give people more of a chance to think about some of these issues that they haven't looked at in a long time.
What is it on it?
Excuse me? That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Alderman Kressel?
No, my questions have already been answered. I'm good. Thank you.
Alderman Widener?
Yeah, thank you. have a question to Director Menser. If in the future we come back to the subdivision plans and things have changed and you either want to expand or reduce the size of the lots that are depicted in the preliminary PUD, would the city be able to do that?
As it's currently recommended by staff, they would have what they would need to do is they would, at that point in time, need to propose a new amendment to the subdivision agreement that was included in the agenda packet backup materials to accommodate whatever development scenario was being proposed.
Okay.
Well, from my perspective, the development agreement, I think it's wise for the city to keep the development agreement in effect because I believe it gives the city more control than just the standard zoning and subdivision process that the city has normally applies to properties like this.
Yeah, I just wonder if, preferences change on the size of the lots, whether we'd be able to go back in and augment them once we go back to it.
I mean, again, to try to address, I don't know if that was a question or just a desire, but the developer or subdivider at that point in time, again, we're talking about at some future date, 5, 10, 15, 20 or more years, the developer would need to comply with whatever zoning requirements were in effect at in the community at that time for the underlying zoning of the property. And if the proposal wasn't consistent with what is included in the development or the subdivision agreement, they would also have to request an amendment to the subdivision agreement at that time.
Okay, thank you. And then this is being designed as a private residence. Would that restrict a commercial livery from being able to be operated? And where would we stand on the boarding of equines?
The zoning ordinance does currently regulate and in most cases prohibit commercial stables, and unless the future or near-term future property owner came through and asked for special zoning approvals, they would not be able to have a commercial type stable on the property.
Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, first of all, I realized that I did not get any of the backup material for this particular item that was not in my agenda that I picked up. So I don't know all the details on it, but what I'm listening to, it sounds like, yeah, I'm concerned that we're going to tie our hands. And is this the potential that we may tie our hands for future development of this area? Or do we freely have the right to change whatever we agree to today to do what we want as a city whenever that happens?
Well, the subdivision agreement that was approved in 2009 was approved based on the preliminary plat of subdivision that's on the screen. It's an extra layer of regulation and requirement that was applied to the property, you might say, in addition and over and above the normal zoning approvals that the city applies to projects like what was proposed at that time. So there is already an extra layer of requirements and obligations that applied to what the property owner wanted to do. I mean, in a sense, the city could, if they didn't want to have those extra regulations, continue on in any form or fashion. This is not what staff is recommending, but you could just eliminate the development or the subdivision agreement altogether. That's not what we're recommending, but that would certainly lessen the restrictions and make it more feasible and easier for the development of the property.
I guess that's my concern is I don't want to tie the hands of the future city council in the development area to find out that we get to a point, because this took place in 2009. Well, that's 12 years ago. So what happens 12 years from now? It's come up. And I just don't want to tie our hands in any way, legally or otherwise, where we cannot make the decision that fits the city of Warrenville at the time they wish to do. So if you can assure me of that, I can go ahead and agree to this. Otherwise, I'm concerned about that. So thanks, Ron.
Okay, and Mayor Brummel.
Thank you. I think keeping the preliminary PUD as designed in 2009 in place is important to have as a beginning point in case the potential proposed development falls through. We can fall back on that, and I think that's pretty good protection for the city in terms of moving forward. So I do support the staff recommendation with the change that Alderman Ashauer submitted as I think that's an important thing to add into it. But this looks like it's pretty well thought out by Ron, and I don't think we're foreclosing on any potential developments in the future by doing what's recommended by the staff this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is Alderman Wilson again. Well, I thank you very much, Mayor, for that reassurance. And to me, I feel more confident now that we have the options in the future that to take care of it so far as the city is concerned and not an individual property. So thank you very much. And I believe I'll be in favor of this.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we will need a motion and a second.
Chairman?
One moment, please. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but
Director
were
Menzer?
you still interested in giving that?
I'm sorry, you're correct. If the attorney and the owner of the property wish to make comments, if they could do so now.
Good evening. This is Rich Garrard. I can keep it pretty short. I'd like to address maybe two of the comments. I'm representing the owner, Fred Conforti, and Fred is also online here, and he can answer any additional questions or speak for himself. But to address maybe two concerns, one is regarding the approvals. The current approvals for the subdivision have expired because they were not exercised during the timelines. We would be comfortable there. One of the things that we asked for is the development agreement to be amended, and Mr. Menster has given a comprehensive explanation of the amendment and the reasons behind it. We could put in the amendment specifically clarifying that these the preliminary plat and the final plat have not received final approval and would need to go back through a village process if we wanted to make such a plan or another plan. So the point is we can clarify in the development agreement that these approvals going back through the city is necessary. So that would protect you and give you the opportunity. In connection with that, this property along the west side that was already conveyed to the owner, it was part of a process and part of a trade for easements that are already issued in place and being used. That property to the west can't really be utilized for anything else, and it ends. And then there's the question of who's going to maintain that over time. Right now, the new owner would be responsible for maintaining it and would continue to maintain it. The village will still have control over the subdivision. If the main reason to keep it is to have leverage or to have control over future development, we can build that into the development agreement. We've agreed to pay for the legal fees for the village attorney to work on it and have that development agreement amended. So that can all be a part of that. And then we won't have to go through a conveyance process now, then a reconveyance process, and then a title issue process when it really can't be used by anybody else anyway. It doesn't go anywhere. So I would request on behalf of the owner that we let that remain the way it is, with the easements the way they are, and any kind of protections we want we build into the development agreement itself that we already have and we're going to be in the process of amending. So with that, I think I tried to address those two comments. We're available for any comments. I don't know if Fred Conforti, who's on the line, if he has anything further, but if not, thank you. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
This is Fred Conforti. I have no other comments. I think Rich did a very good job of stating an alternative way of approaching this that we would be very comfortable with.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, any of the aldermen or the mayor that have any further comments or questions? If you would just speak up. Okay, hearing none.
So, Madam Chairman, it's the mayor again. I would be comfortable with what has been suggested by the attorney. That sounds to me like a pretty sound way to protect our interests going forward into the future. So I would then support the agreement as proposed by staff without any changes.
Thank you. Director Menzer, did you have anything else?
No, I just assure you, the entire city council, if the city council gives the direction that's recommended by staff tonight, we'll work closely with the city attorney to wind in as many reasonable protections as possible into the agreement, given the concerns that were raised by the council tonight, to address those.
Very good. Thank you. All right, now we would need a motion and a second.
Alderman Davalos, I would like to make a motion to direct staff and the city attorney draft a Sequestria subdivision agreement that incorporates the amendments requested by the property owner and subject to the property owner paying all city legal costs associated with preparing the revised agreement.
You need a second?
Alderman Widener, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Davalos and a second by Alderman Widener. Clerk Ravetti, would you please read the roll?
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Krischel,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
and Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Number 4, consideration of differential tap-on fee surcharges for utility extensions through the Sequestria property. We have Public Works Director Phil Kugler.
Thank you and good evening. To support development of TIF 4, as Director Menzer mentioned, city extended sewer and water through the Sequestria property in 2018 and 2019. The extensions within the property would have been performed by the developer had the subdivision move forward, as they would have been needed for the subdivision. Staff worked with the city attorney to draft the ordinance included with the agenda backup materials. And I just want to point out there are 2 categories of fees included in the ordinance. The first is just for the parcels that comprise a Sequestria property, and it's based on the city's expenses for these extensions. Staff based the fees on the total cost divided by the 10-lot subdivision proposal by the developer that was represented in the preliminary plat or PUD to determine a per lot connection fee. And the other category is for properties outside the subdivision properties that received stubs from the sanitary sewer extension. Those properties would be charged a fee consistent with the standard surcharge fee that has been charged on other city utilities extensions dating back to 2005. And with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Anderson.
No questions.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
My only concern is that you've got 2 recommendations for my address, and I just want to make sure that the identification for those 2 recommendations are correct. That the eastern half of the lot is considered a stub lot.
It is.
Okay. Thank you.
I have no comments or questions. Alderman Davalos?
No, so just to confirm, any development, any tap on fee will be a tenth of the total. No matter if there's 8 lots on there, 7, 2, 3, in 20 years, it'll all be divided, whatever it was divided by 10. And okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Alderman Goodman?
While it's disappointing that these costs that would normally be borne by a developer have instead been borne by the taxpayers, and it looks like as things currently stand, we're only going to recoup 1/10 of the cost instead of 10/10. It's still understandable because we needed this connection for other reasons and for other benefited properties, and so even though it didn't turn out well, I'm sure the owner would have wanted the development to go forward too, but they're disappointed as well. And so we're not going to get all the taxpayer money back if we structure it this way. And I know that staff would arrange it differently if they could, but charging the full amount for one house is not a reasonable way to arrange this. I guess if the staff doesn't have any better suggestions than this, then this is the best we can do. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Alderman Krischel?
No questions or comments.
Alderman Widener?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson?
I have no comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Brummel?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. We will need a motion.
Okay, Alderman Davalos, I would like to recommend the City Council pass an ordinance approving differential tap-on fee surcharges for the 2018 sanitary sewer extension and 2019 water extension projects through the Sequestria subdivision property.
Alderman Widener seconds.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Davalos and a second by Alderman Widener. Clerk Rivetti, could you please read the roll?
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
I'll abstain from this. It has my address in it.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Krischel,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Number 5, consideration of a contract to line a section of water main under Route 59. And this would be Director Kukler.
Thank you again. Staff recently discovered a leak in the water main that runs under Route 59 near the Winchester subdivision. We considered a couple different alternatives for replacing the pipe without having to excavate across 59, because that's obviously not a realistic solution. The first alternative we considered was replacing the existing pipe with a casing pipe and then inserting a brand new water main inside that casing pipe, and that would be done by directional drilling. We received 2 quotes ranging from $70,000 to $116,000 for that work. And then the other alternative we considered was to line the existing pipe. And we received 4 quotes for lining that pipe, which ranged from $41,760 to $100,000. And it's important to note that lowest price was $23,000 lower than the second lowest quote. We're recommending waiving competitive bidding and approving a contract with FurPal Construction, which specializes in the water main rehabilitation. I do want to point out that staff would be, public works staff would work with FurPal to excavate on both sides of the road to expose the main and cut it open. So then FurPal would come in and line the main, and then the staff would reconnect it to the system, take care of any sort of water testing, and then backfill and perform the restoration. And there would be a requirement to get an IDOT permit, which we'd have to work with FurPal to obtain that. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Alderman Anderson.
Yeah, it's unique, the range of pricing and we're just confident that this lining process is just as effective as the other process, I assume.
It is. The liner they'd be using is a structural liner, so in the end, it's strong. It's as strong as the pipe by itself would be.
Okay, no other questions.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. When you have to get a permit from IDOT,
We do.
and how long does that take?
It'd probably be a few weeks.
Okay, and when do you think would this all happen?
Assuming council approval next Monday, probably before the end of the year, we would get it done. It becomes a little dependent on weather as you get closer to winter, but.
Okay, as it gets colder, it would be much more difficult to do. Is that?
Yeah,
I mean,
it would be. I mean, if we
freezing and then we wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, but I'm confident we could get it done before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Davalos?
Two quick questions. Is the restoration included in the 41,760, or is that separate?
That's separate. Staff would be, Public Works staff would be taking care of the restoration.
Okay. And yeah, there was quite a difference, but this company seemed to have some good recommendations. So I was glad that you included those, and I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Goodman?
My questions are mainly out of curiosity. You know, what sort of damage might this leaking water do while is it just continuing to leak perpetually from now until the end of the year or whenever we get this fixed? Or
No, we staff isolated the leak and shut down that section of main underneath 59. We have forget how many other cross connections underneath 59 that we can, for a period of time, do without this connection, but longer term we need that. We do need it. So the leak is stopped right now.
That's a relief. All right, that's good to know. Just my curiosity. Everything looks fine.
Thank you. Alderman Krischel?
No questions. I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Widener?
Thank you. My only question is there's not going to be any issues with water service delivery to any of the residents or anything?
No, there won't.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Wilson?
Oh, I have no objections at all, and I'm in favor of it. As a matter of fact, I agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Brummel, Mayor Brummel. Ooh, going back a few years. Yeah. Mayor Brummel.
Just a question in terms of the bids. Did all of the bids include the same amount of our employees' participation in what would be done?
No, the ones with the directional drilling would have had they would have performed the excavation work on the sides of the road. But for the lining, yes, we would have, our employees would have been doing the excavation and restoration.
Okay, so that is a savings for the city by having our employees involved in the operation?
Yes, because the lining contractors would have to hire a separate contractor to come in and do the work for them.
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate the fact that this happens frequently, that you're able to use our people to save taxpayers' money. So good job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We would need a motion, please.
Alderman Davalos, I would like to recommend the City Council pass a resolution waiving competitive bidding and approving a contract with Furpal Construction USA for $41,760 water main pipelining.
Alderman
Second.
Wilson.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Who was it? Can I have a second? Who was that?
Alderman Widener will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Davalos and a second by Alderman Widener. Clerk, if you could please read the roll.
Alderman Krischel?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Hi.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman Widener?
Aye.
Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Alderman Davalos?
Aye.
Alderman Berry?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Number 6, consideration of contract for the Country Ridge Drive Water Tower inspection and maintenance. Director Kohler.
Thank you. Building off the existing 12-year contract that the city has with McGuire Iron for the inspection, painting, and maintenance of the city's water tower on West Street, staff's recommending a second 10-year contract with McGuire for the painting, inspection, and maintenance of the city's water tower on Country Ridge Drive. I do want to mention staff has had a good experience with McGuire 2 years into the current contract, and they had painted the interior of the tower on West Street already. So we've got, I think, a pretty good feel for how they perform and the diligence with which they perform their work. We selected a 10-year term this time around, so the 2 contracts would actually end at the same time. Ultimately, if all goes well, staff would anticipate a single long-term maintenance contract for all of the city water towers the next time around, after these contracts would conclude. And that would allow us some flexibility in working with whichever contractor would be doing that work at that time to spread out the cost to maintain those and kind of even them out, as opposed to getting socked with like multiple expensive repairs or painting jobs in the same year. The EMRP anticipated spending about $800,000 in fiscal year 23 for this water tower. You'll note that the contract total for this is $718,975, with only $180,500 to be spent in fiscal year 23, although 95% of the costs will be spread out, paid in the first 3 years of the contract. But it is spreading the costs out a little bit more as far as EMRP costs go, and that should help in terms of some of the sewer and water charges and fees, or water fees, I guess. The contract is a hybrid of professional services and construction type services, and probably does qualify for the exemption from bidding for professional services in the city code. However, be safe, the city attorney is recommending waiving competitive bidding, and this would be consistent with what we did on the original 12-year contract with McGuire. I would be happy to entertain questions at this time, and I do want to point out that Darren Clark and Jamie Mays from McGuire are both on the line if you have any questions for the contractor.
Thank you. Alderman Anderson, comments, questions?
No questions or comments for me.
Okay. Alderman Ashar.
No questions or comments.
Thank you. I have no questions. Alderman Davalos.
I have no questions either. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Goodman.
Thank you. I have 2. First of all, this is a very large expense, and from an EMRP perspective, reducing the total amount and spreading it out somewhat, at least over 3 years or to some degree 10, is tremendously helpful. Just doing the math on what our water and sewer rate increases need to look like over the next few years, this is a very good way to structure it to try and minimize some of the impact of these costs on our ratepayers. But secondly, can you talk a little bit about the bidding process that we're waiving and how much work or cost that might add to this process, and why you feel like your recommendation is to waive that?
So when we had the original contract with McGuire, we did interview McGuire and 2 other contractors to do this work, and I got prices from all 3 of them, and they were all, I think, as I recall, very close in terms of price. We felt most comfortable with McGuire based on the prep work they did and the research they did going in, plus their references last time around. If we were to go forward and try to go out to bid on this, we'd probably have to have an engineering firm, hire an engineering firm and pay probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like $25,000 to $50,000 to have them help us develop bid documents and evaluate the water tower, so then we could develop the bid documents and have contractors all bid on the exact same thing. And so by going this route, we're saving that engineering fee and working directly with the contractor to develop the plan and the work that needs to be done. I don't anticipate that we would have a cheaper cost by going through bidding. That's something that for the first time we went through this process, we talked to a few other municipalities that have gone through this work, and they did not save money by going out to bid on the project.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm in agreement with the recommendations.
Thank you. Alderman Krischel.
I have no questions, and I also support this. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Widener.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderman Wilson.
I have no questions either. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor Brummel.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, where are we? We need a motion and a second, please.
Okay, Alderman Davalos, I'd like to recommend the City Council pass a resolution waiving competitive bidding and approving a contract with McGuire Iron Incorporated for $718,975 for West Water Tower painting and inspection.
Second by Alderman Goodman.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Davalos and a second by Alderman Goodman. Clerk Ravetti, could you please read the roll?
Alderman Davalos?
Aye.
Alderman Berry?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman Widener?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Chrisell?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Number 7, consideration of staff recommendation to create and fill 2 new crew leader positions in Public Works. Director Kukler.
Thank you. You may recall that council approved the Public Works reorganization plan in December of 2020. The first 2 steps in that plan were completed earlier in 2021 with the promotions of the Public Works Director, Utility Maintenance Superintendent, and Capital Maintenance Superintendent. The next step in the plan is to create and fill 2 crew leader positions in the second half of fiscal year 2022. There were 2 decision packages for the positions that were approved with the fiscal year 22 budget. Staff anticipates filling these positions with internal promotions. And we've worked with the finance department to estimate what the extra cost for fiscal year 22 would be with the promotions of existing staff. And it would be approximately $4,900 from the general fund and then $4,900 from the water and sewer fund. And if approved by City Council, staff anticipates an internal advertisement by the end of October, and with the hopes of having the promotions finished or official before the end of the year. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Alderman Anderson, questions, comments?
No questions.
Okay, Alderman Ashour?
No questions.
I have no questions. Alderman Davalos?
I have no questions, but I'm just glad to see this original Public Works big plan that we did continuing to execute over time. It really looks good. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Goodman?
I guess my only question is, what happens if we feel like this ends up being premature based on the financial condition of the city in fiscal year 23? How will we be positioned to deal with that possibility when we've already approved this now?
It's similar to the superintendent. So right now, until we ultimately backfill and add 2 people down, which, let me back up. I'm going to be proposing, as long as the city can afford it, based on the financial analysis and conversations with the city administrator and the finance director, to include 2 new hires in fiscal year 23. Those are backfill the 2 spots vacated by the crew leader promotions. But similar to the superintendents, right now, they're still performing work that they were performing before as lead supervisors. And the crew leaders, I would anticipate, also be doing the same thing until we would be able to backfill the positions. Once we get fully staffed up, we'll realize some of the additional time in the field by a working supervisor. But at this point, things would be kind of status quo. I do recommend promoting the crew leaders earlier than hiring the 2 new staff, because it would be good to prepare the crew leaders for being elevated to those roles. There's going to be a little bit of training, a little bit of a transition from just working with their fellow coworkers to actually supervising their fellow coworkers and directing them. So it's going to be an adjustment. And I'd like having some time ahead of time to train them and get them transition to that new role.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, choosing people for supervision and making sure that they feel like they're being treated with respect is very important within a department. And recognizing people's achievements and their loyalty and their long-term commitment to the city is very important too. So for those reasons, I think this is a good recommendation.
Thank you. Alderman Chrisell?
I am good. Thanks.
Okay. Alderman Widener?
All good. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson?
I did notice that there's one question as to whether or not these would be union people or not. That still has to be decided.
Our Assistant City Administrator White spoke with the city's labor attorney, and because they are performing supervisory roles and would be involved in evaluating their crews, they would be non-union positions.
Okay, now would they also still be required to do the standby or whatever you call it for weekends?
Yes, they would be part of the on-call rotation, just as the lead supervisor positions were before them.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you very much. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you. And Mayor Brummel?
Thank you. And I would echo what Alderman Davilo said earlier. Thanks for following through on the plan that's been adopted. It's good to see things happen as the council has proposed them to be happening. And I really appreciate the fact that you're following through, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We need a motion and a second, please.
Alderman Davalos, I would like to recommend City Council pass an ordinance amending the authorized strength ordinance to add 2 crew leader positions.
Alderman Widener, second.
Alderman Widener, was that you?
I think, yeah, together with Alderman Crucial, I think. So take your pick.
Okay. A motion by Alderman Davalos and a second by Alderman Widener. May Clerk Cravetti, could I have the roll, please?
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson, Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
thank you. Alderman Crucial,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, number 8, consideration of license agreement with Everstream. Director Kugler.
Thank you. I think we're past the halfway point of my items now. Everstream is a company that installs fiber optic cable in support of small wireless facilities. Since they don't pay the telecommunications tax to the state, the city can actually negotiate this license agreement and charge a fee for them to install their infrastructure in our right of way. The staff and the city attorney utilized an existing license agreement between the city of Elmhurst and Everstream. So Elmhurst did some of the heavy lifting to negotiate an agreement that we knew would be easier to use as a template for this agreement. And we based our annual fee on that, the fee included in that agreement. This agreement's being brought forward right now because Everstream currently has 2 permit applications into the city for review for installation. I think these 2 installations are primarily in state or county right of way, but they do cross various city right of ways as well. The agreement includes conditions under which Everstream can install their fiber optic cable in the city right of way. It establishes an annual fee of 50 cents per foot of fiber in the city right of way, and will help us to document where Everstream's facilities get installed and then what the length of those installations within the city right of way. And with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Alderman Anderson.
No questions.
Alderman Ashour.
I guess my question is what are our obligations if there's a cable hit? It's very costly to repair fiber optics. They're going to be installing them on our right of ways where we have main breaks, sewer problems, and I don't want it to cost us more for their convenience.
I think the only way we'd be responsible for paying for a repair of these is if we didn't call in a Julie, and if we went and dug without a Julie and then hit them. But they'll be part of the Julie system. So when a Julie's called in or locate is called in before an excavation, they would be called out there to mark it out. And we, just like anything else, like a ComEd or other fiber or any other gas main or anything, we would have to be exercise care in excavating around these things. Now we should have, with these being new installations, we should have a pretty good feel and understanding of where they're at as well. because we will have them better documented, I think, than all the existing gas main and ComEd lines and things like that are in the ground.
Well, it's still a big concern. If there's some way to mitigate that, I would certainly be more comfortable with it.
Thank you. I have no comments. Alderman Davalos,
I have no comments, thanks.
Alderman Goodman.
Yeah, Exhibit A is blank, the proposed locations. I guess this is a template agreement and they'll come forward with proposed locations from time to time, but having some idea of what we're talking about here would help me wrap my mind around this a little bit better. Do you have a sense of where they're gonna be putting this?
I think it's going to depend a lot on where the small wireless facilities that they support will be going. I could include information in the city council agenda next week on where the 2 applications that they have currently in are proposing to install their fiber optic, but they right now just have the 2 applications, and like could theoretically be anywhere in the city ultimately if there's a need to put smaller wireless facilities, which I don't know if you recall, we've spoken about those. I mean, right now Verizon's got some installed. I think AT&T has one that was an approved permit that hasn't been installed yet, but these could be a variety of companies that would be installing these, not even just the cell phone providers. There's other ones I've heard talk like Google and these other companies that could end up with some of these small wireless facilities throughout all over the place, not just Warrenville, but all throughout the country. So it really depends on who their fiber is going to support and where they're going to ultimately install the demand is to install their small wireless facilities.
Right, because just to be clear, this gives them blanket authority to put fibers in any right-of-way owned by the city anywhere in town. And this is, I guess, structured that way intentionally. And they are still going to have to get some specific permits from you as they go along, which will be helpful with that. But I don't really see a good mechanism, at least not in this agreement, for us to say, no, that's not a good spot, or can we work with you to put it somewhere else, or we have some slightly more leverage to say no to particular projects. The way this is described, they are hereby granted a license to install, operate, maintain, and remove cables within the city's public right-of-way. I mean, it could not possibly be more open-ended. So I guess that's my concern.
Yeah, they still do have to get permits from us, and we know where our water mains and sanitary sewers and things like that are. That we don't allow companies to knowingly install their facilities over the top of our facilities that would cause us issues later. Now, it doesn't mean that in the past there aren't gas mains right over the top of a water main and things like that have occurred. But again, I think with GIS, we've got a better sense of where our stuff is and should have a better sense to be able to analyze these and make sure they don't install things over the top or in conflict with our facilities.
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of one piece of leverage I see in Section 3, Part B, where it says their installation will result in minimal disruption to the surfaces of the right-of-way, but that doesn't really say anything about the disruption to the things underneath the right-of-way, which I would think would also be a concern. I just wonder if there could be some slightly more protective phrasing. And I know Elmhurst did most of this drafting, and I just, I guess I would echo some of the concerns that Alderman Ashauer expressed too.
Thank you. Alderman Kerschel?
I have no questions.
Alderman Widener?
I have no questions either. Thank you.
Alderman Wilson?
No questions, thank you.
Mayor Brummel?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you will need a motion and a second, please.
Chairman Barry, can I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Alderman Ashauer.
Just for Phil, can we make sure the agreement doesn't allow any open cuts on the roads, that they all have to be line bored, and that they be required to put their cables at a specific depth, plus or minus 10%, so that when we're digging, we know. I mean, I've been involved in cable problems my whole professional career, and it's a big deal. And nobody wants to hit fiber optics. So the easier we make it on ourselves, the better it'll be.
Yeah, I'm going to check with the city attorney on how best to handle that. If we are able to handle that through our permit process right now, that's when utilities come in, they provide engineering plans that show the alignment and then what method of construction as well as how deep they're going. And if they don't specify that stuff, we are reviewing that to tell them you need to put it as, the certain depth or indicate what depth it's going to be at. And also, especially for roadways that are freshly paved, but even we don't generally like them to open cut roadways. And even there's a permit in there right now for a different project that's not related to Everstream where they are showing a line underneath the city road that should go on the parkway. But even there, I don't want them to open a cut across somebody's driveway that was newly paved either. It's going to be telling them directional bore even in a parkway.
I just know they are traditionally lazy in the way they install these things, even with power lines. And by doing that, they put everybody else at risk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, a motion and a second, please.
Alderman Davalos, I'd like to recommend the City Council pass a resolution approving a license agreement with Everstream for installation of fiber optic cable in city public right-of-way.
Second, Alderman Goodman.
Goodman, okay. Thank you. We have a motion by Alderman Davalos and a second by Alderman Goodman. Clerk Ravetti, could I please have a roll call?
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Krischel,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Number 9, consideration of design engineering contract for Batavia Road resurfacing. Director Kugler.
Thank you. The city has federal surface transportation program funding to pay for 70% of the resurfacing construction costs of the section of Batavia Road between Route 59 and Fermilab, and it's anticipated to occur in 2023. Staff was informed that there's a requirement to start the design engineering and have a kickoff meeting with IDOT before next spring. Otherwise, we risk losing the funding we have. So staff's bringing forward this contract now, which is a little bit earlier than I anticipated. I actually anticipated it was going to be in fiscal year 23. No money is specifically budgeted for this expense in fiscal year 22. However, with the estimated net savings on other CMRP projects this year, which would be like the road program, the museum tuck pointing and painting, and a couple of other projects, there's a net savings we're estimating to be about $85,000, and I think that's on the conservative end. I think that actually we're going to be farther under budget than 85,000 even. So there is sufficient money in the CMRP budget this year to cover the portion of the design engineering that will be completed this year. Staff did receive 2 proposals for this project and is recommending Engineering Resource Associates for the work because of its significant experience in city projects and their specific experience on IDOT's process for this type of a project. And with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Alderman Anderson.
Dr. Kuklar, I was curious, it sounds like there was a regulation tied to this money that caught us a bit by surprise. Was it a new regulation? Did we just, why does it feel like a surprise?
The process changed in the last few years for STP program funding, and one of the requirements with 2-page mayors and managers is that you have a kickoff meeting before the next call for projects, and the next call for projects is in the spring. So it's just something we'd overlooked when figuring when we would have to start the process here.
Okay, I'm supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
No questions.
I have no questions. Alderman Davalos.
No questions, thanks.
Alderman Goodman.
I have the same question as Alderman Anderson, but it's been answered.
Thank you. Alderman Krischel.
No questions.
Thank you. Alderman Widener.
Well, I'm just curious as to whether or not whether this roadway has the width that would support a bike lane. We have bike lanes in the area of Continental, and it could further connect the bike friendliness and the bike lanes in Warrenville if we were to do so.
I don't believe the road is wide enough to double check, but having driven down there a number of times, I don't believe the road is wide enough to accommodate bike lanes.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Wilson
No comments, thank you.
and Mayor Brummel.
Just one comment. Thanks, Bill, for protecting our outside source of funds.
Okay, great. We need a motion. Second.
Alderman Davalos, I'd like to recommend the City Council pass a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Engineering Resource Associates for design engineering services relating to the Batavia Road resurfacing project in the amount of $26,788.65 plus reimbursable expenses.
Second, Alderman Anderson.
I'm not sure who that was.
Alderman
Anderson. Okay. We have a motion by Alderman Davalos and a second by Alderman Anderson. Clerk Gravetti, could you please read the roll?
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman Krischel?
Aye.
Alderman Davalos?
Aye.
Alderman Widener?
Aye.
Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Berry?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Number 10, consideration of design engineering contract for square courts resurfacing. Director Kukler.
Thank you. The city has community development block grant funding for the resurfacing of the section of the square courts in Summer Lakes, which is located west of Shaw and between Continental and Batavia Road. And that construction could occur in either 2022 or 2023, depending on when the funds are released. If they're released too late in 2022, then we would have to go out to bid in the spring of 2023. This project was included in the fiscal year 22 budget. And like the last project, staff received 2 proposals for this work and is recommending that Thomas Engineering perform this work because of its significant experience on CDBG road projects. They've done a number of them for the city of West Chicago. Thomas Engineering was also the company that designed the reconstruction of Warrenville Road a couple of years ago too. So they've got prior experience with the city. With that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Alderman Anderson, please.
No questions.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour?
No questions.
I have no questions. Alderman Davalos?
Well, just out of curiosity, I'm still not quite sure where this is. It's just a block, it's a square with houses around that square? Or what does square mean? Square must mean that area you were talking about.
There's several streets over west of Shaw and between Continental and Batavia Road and Summer Lakes that do have the generally are square-shaped courts. There's a square-shaped island in the middle, and the street kind of goes around it in a square in that area. So there are a couple of areas. We resurfaced the other ones east of Shaw a couple of years ago, and these ones are due now.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Alderman Goodman?
No questions.
Thank you. Alderman Krischel?
No questions.
Alderman Widener?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderman Wilson?
No questions, thank you.
And Mayor Brummel?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, a motion, please, and a second.
Last one, Alderman Davalos, I'd like to recommend the City Council pass a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Thomas Engineering Group for design engineering services relating to the Square Courts resurfacing project in the amount of $38,000 plus reimbursable expenses.
Second, Alderman Ashour.
Thank you. We have a motion by Alderman Davalos and a second by Alderman Ashour. Clerk Ravetti, could you please read the roll?
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Barry,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Krischel,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, number 11, review and file Public Works Department FY 2022 Work Program and Decision Package Status Report. This is for discussion regarding the report. I will go through the list, and if anyone has any questions or comments, I'm sure that Director Kukler will be happy to answer them. Alderman Anderson.
I had no comments on the list, but I just did want to thank Director Kukler and Director Metzer for this evening's meeting. Clearly, they have so much going on, but their command of our town and how they continue to move us forward is really impressive. So, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. I have no questions. Alderman Davalos.
I have no questions, but I'd like to second Alderman Anderson's thoughts on these two departments. It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Goodman.
Thank you. I have one question on the railroad quiet zone update. It has a completion date of this month, but says it hasn't been started yet. Is there a problem?
Nope, that's a typo on my part. It has been started. Management analyst Youngmeyer's been working on that throughout the year. It was an oversight on my part to not note that in the status.
Okay, is it about to expire soon? I kind of have a feeling that there's some deadline on that that's coming up rather soon.
Yeah, October is the deadline. So she was obtaining some information from other agencies, and I was going to finalize that for submittal then.
Okay, good luck to her with that. We don't want that to expire. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Krischel.
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Widener.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Wilson.
No, thank you. No questions, thank you.
You're welcome. And Mayor Brummel.
Thank you. I would just like to echo the comments by Alderman Anderson and Alderman Davalos. Staff did a particularly good job tonight of preparing the meeting and answering questions. So as always, a good job, strong work. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that would be the end of the business of the meeting, and now there's nothing under miscellaneous, and all we would need is a motion and a second to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second, Alderman Krischel.
We have a motion by Alderman Goodman and a second by Alderman Krischel. Clerk Gavetti, could you please read the roll?
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Barry,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Krischel,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chairman Barry.
Good night.